Welcome, everyone. My name is Matt Aiello. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer for ServiceCore, and just super excited for you guys to be here. Thank you for spending your afternoon with us for a little bit to learn about the Portable Sanitation Industry Benchmark Report. And do we have a mic up on stage? Sorry. I'll pass this one. We have a panel, and these are customers of ours, but also people with extensive experience in the industry. So, Will, if you would start, introduce yourself. How big is your company, where you're located, and do you like long walks on the beach?
Yeah, thank you. Will McLaughlin, I'm one of the co-owners of Ameri-cans. We started off in Northern Virginia, about 5.5 years old. Today we're in several states. We've got about 65 service trucks, 165 employees. Yep.
Cynthia Evenhouse, located in Muskegon. This is our 25th year of owning our company. We started out with one branch, and we now have 5, but they're all in the West Michigan area.
Chris Vandermillen, Northern Lower Michigan, and I am one of the branch of Caribou Services.
All right, so if you haven't scanned to download, we'll give you an opportunity. You can either stop by our booth and whatnot. It's free download. But we want to start off by first, if you ever give a presentation, create a mascot of yourself and have that mascot point to things. But why did we do a benchmark report to start with? So 4 years ago, this is our 4th edition, we were looking around the industry and we were saying, where are the benchmarks? So many people were asking questions about, just all the different things that we collect in this report. And so we decided to create it ourselves. And this year is our biggest and best. But really, it's, you can look at this and recognize your strengths. Hopefully, you can identify areas to improve. And then, you get a read on the market and what others are thinking. But here's the key thing of this presentation. It has really nothing to do with me presenting. It's about all of your experience. So if you would please share. We have a few of our marketing folks in the audience. And if there's going to be at times I pause and I'm going to ask the panel about their experience, but I'd also like to hear from you. And we're not below bribing people. So if you brave enough, you get a box of Girl Scout cookies because it is that time of year. There's lots of different flavors too. So if you participate, you get fed. All right, so just to kind of cover the basics of who was in this benchmark report. So this year, the benchmark report is made up of, we survey the industry and we get back hundreds of responses, as well as this year, something new that we did was we took our customer data and anonymized it, and we're going to share some of that with you as well to look at things like rental length. But overall, here's the breakdown across the US and Canada, as well as the people that are filling out. So you could see lots of owners, ops managers, office managers. So the right people are giving us input. And then we have business sizes of every size. So people that are just starting out that have 100 toilets to people that have more than 2,500 toilets in their fleet. Okay, let's jump into profit margins and costs. So one thing that we saw that was very interesting this year is that more people moved into the 11 to 20% profit range. And people moved out of the 0 to 10%, but a lot less people were in the 20 plus from previous years. And as we looked at this data, what we started to see was potentially that there are some cost of goods sold that are driving down your profit. And I'll ask some questions in a second here, but if we look at some of these, fuel increased 18% year over year. Fleet repair and maintenance increased 22% year over year. And disposal fees went up 29% year over year. And finally, chemical supplies jumped up all the way 33% year over year. By show of hands, did you see this in your businesses? Okay, so most saw it. And then what we also saw was that because of this, pros looked to cut costs in other areas. And so overtime pay dropped by 50%, and pros actually financed 50% less equipment in 25 versus 24. Will, may I ask, can you tell us about what your experience with this in your business this year?
Yeah, I'm curious if part of that margin compression was because of the disaster relief over the last year, right? There was a lot less. The year before that, there was the floods. There was a couple of storms. And I know just tangentially, a lot of that drives those margins. I think for us, I mean, obviously the fuel cost is a big one. Cost of goods sold is another one. Haven't seen tremendous increases. I think for a lot of that stuff across the board, the one that I think I've seen more of a trend with is the maintenance costs associated with our fleet. We've seen more and more recently, and I feel like last year this was something we talked about a little bit, right? Like fleet maintenance has become more and more expensive, and a lot of it is like inherently like silly problems with trucks and new chassis. This year we took delivery of at least probably, not this year, sorry, 25. I think we probably had 5 trucks that got delivered to us that were deadlined and had to go back in for warranty claims. So like brand new trucks off the line from the upfitter had a chassis issue, so not an upfitter issue, a chassis issue that basically materialized somewhere between leaving the upfitter and getting to our yard, which we haven't dealt with something like that before. So that was like the truck maintenance thing I think has been a big driver for us. And you know, every time you walk around and see a relatively new truck that has the hood up and it's deadline for whatever reason, like it's indicative of that. That's been a big driver for us more than anything else, I think.
I know on my end, because I'm more in the office, we had a lot of wage overview that we did this year because last year wages just kind of killed us. So we tried to do more hiring, be more efficient, and really watch the OT because OT is where it really, gets you. And then we were really conscious about adding in extra fees for anything that is outside the norm. We don't like to add fees for things, but we were really conscious about saying, hey, if you want this special Sunday pickup, I got to pay my guy double. You got to pick up the tab for that because we can no longer afford that. So I know for us, wages was a big one.
On the operation side of it, there's a few things, and I'm looking at it with our overtime and like fuel and a few things, but you're seeing more of less sites are wanting plastic, they're wanting to go to trailers, which equates to less time. Along the lines of the trucks, you're seeing, a lot of them are running more efficiently, those kinds of things. So you are seeing less in the overtime on that. And then, we did try to ramp up staffing to control that. And another big thing is with the whole package there, which I promise you I'm not paid by ServiceCore, but I think you're going to see and I would be curious to see if you guys did a poll, I don't remember, but how many people jumped into using some sort of software? Because even though this industry is mom and pops driven, how much money is being controlled by younger generations? And those people, as we all know, are well driven by, that digital world. So how much of that come, down because of that?
Great point. And obviously, software, not just ours, but any software out there is going to create efficiency. So that is a great point. We didn't ask that specific question, but really good one. And Cynthia brought up a good topic about add-on fees. So we asked about what were your, if you want to try to combat this, what were some of your top add-on fees? So a card fee, other is a big category, environmental fee, and pickup or delivery fee. From the audience, did anyone have something different than this that they've added to their business that has helped? Remember, it's cookies. All right, Will's going to save me here, but think about it.
So a couple of things that we have, in addition, we have like an after hours or same day, or call it QRF, like quick reaction fee. Basically, if we get an emergency call, it can be on a weekend, it could be after, after 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it has to be same day kind of a thing. One other thing that has been controversial anytime I've ever been to a ServiceCore event was we have a graffiti fee, and we have a graffiti policy with our MSA, within our MSA. So if there's graffiti, we charge for it. And we we define very much what it means to have graffiti in terms of size, and we have a charge for a minimum amount, and we have a charge for a larger amount. And it's in our MSA, and we just bill for it. We clean it up, we document it, and we bill for it. That is,
your neighbors do that too?
like the other companies?
Yeah.
Not that I know of, no. So that is one thing that has been, and that is more of a maintenance and therefore like profit preservation tool as opposed to like this is to make money, it makes there be more of a lens around that type of behavior. And because they're paying more attention to it, then less of it happens. And if less of it happens, obviously with graffiti, that is like the first domino that tips over for people just abusing your equipment. So if we limit graffiti, then it limits damage generally, and it limits, big murals that actually ruin equipment. So those are other things that we do.
By show of hands, does anyone charge for that, for graffiti? At a fee?
Anything.
Anything. So I saw just a few hands. That might be something you consider adding to your business, and come talk to Will afterwards if you want to get some more insight on that. Are there anything else that, if we are seeing these costs rising, is there anything else that you did last year to help you with your profit margins that you'd be willing to share? Our first box of cookies.
Here you go.
Going for cookies.
Here you go.
We're in South Africa, so we're different, but we add insurance fee to our units, and I think that made a huge difference to our income, or it's just extra.
Thank you for sharing. Anyone else?
So is that insurance so that if there is graffiti, it's covered? Like, what does that entail?
No, that's when there's theft or burnt, then it's covered, but if,
So it's like a damage waiver.
yeah.
Anyone else have something that's different?
Need more service, or we need to bring you more units, but it seems like a little bit of struggle, which, like, how do you all deal with it?
We're pretty proactive. So if we have a site, our name's on the door, right? So we're pretty proactive. If we have a site that is consistently overused, we call the site super. If we get nowhere with them, we call the person that ordered it. And at some point we say to them, look, you either get more or we're going to pull out because you're making us look bad by your poor choices. So that's how we handle that.
Sure.
The environmental fee, what does that normally cover? Is that just fuel, or is that disposal? The one that's on there? Like,
I would love somebody to tell me that.
well,
Yeah.
so we charge a separate disposal fee. So I don't know if that's something that is included in environmental fee or not, but we actually call it disposal fee.
We do something like that. We do something like that as well. We have it in there as like that it could be an add-on. If we end up going into a market where, because there are different fees in different jurisdictions, if we go into a market that goes over X amount per gallon, we'll do a dump surcharge fee, which is another thing. Just to, again, profit preservation as opposed to really like we're not making a ton of money on it, but what we're doing is keeping more to the bottom line. It's not, and most people like these types of things that I've described. We feel like they're pretty tried and true for us, so it's very easy to justify. To any reasonable person is going to be like, well, we anticipated it was going to be 15 cents a gallon to dump, and it's 45 cents a gallon here. Like you can't just eat that, right? So most reasonable people understand that, and they will build it into their budgets. So it's something, yeah, we do that same thing, but we just dump fee.
Does anyone have an environmental fee? Can you talk about it?
Well, in our markets,
Can you wait for the mic there?
Portable toilets and waste disposal is not considered taxable. So we tell them in lieu of tax, we are charging environmental, and it covers the increase in dumping costs that we've seen. I mean, our disposal company has, or the wastewater treatment plant has had a huge increase, but they hadn't increased in more than 15 years. So it's a big shift, and we've had to make that visible to our customers.
So why wouldn't you just raise the cost for your unit instead of adding a fee?
Because we have very price conscious, and they're only looking at the per unit cost.
So it's almost like a
It's
sneak
almost like a
under
bottom
the-
line because they're used to seeing it with tax. Some of our competitors charge tax, and we
Okay.
don't really know why. We confirmed with the state.
Well, because you can choose to be a service company or a rental
Right,
company.
right, right,
Correct. Right. You're just providing service.
So, I mean, a lot of people, they just look at, they literally sometimes just don't even look just looking at the price.
And I was wondering, because we have a United Reliable moved in, and yeah, they do that. The unit price is really low, but then there's like 8 different fees, and it's like, oh, I can't compete on the unit price because I don't charge all those fees. So it's just presentation.
That's the only fee we do charge.
Okay.
It's just that some people don't pay attention to it. Right. And then if it goes the other way, like we try it the other way, everybody plays the game. You know, I'm sure we're in the same jurisdiction as some of the people in here, and we all play the game with each other, but some people read it, some people don't, some people read the fine print, some people don't. And it's just, you know, it's a constant game that we won't play. But you will, with all the areas that you guys are in, like how do you guys work that?
We're very transparent in the pricing. It's effectively the price is the price. The top line, when it gets to the bottom line, is generally the same thing, but for taxes. That's kind of part of our go-to-market strategy as well. It's something that, you know, if we talk to a new client or somebody that hasn't worked with us before, we tell them to like challenge us on this. Like, you know, if we want to talk price, let's talk price. And then, you know, if you've got a problem, you know, call the cell phone number when you get your first invoice if there's an issue with what you're actually billed versus what we told you were going to be billed. So we're pretty, like, we tried the model of like, because in this kind of like, and I probably impact this quite a bit with our business, but I hate when we deal with our vendors, I see a price and I want that to be the price we end up paying, right? So it's like, this is some scar tissue for myself where it's like, I don't want to give other people the experience because it annoys the heck out of me, right? So I'm just like, we try to represent that with our customers. And generally speaking, I think, again, getting back to what we have found over time is there are certain things that we can't control that we want to not eat those costs, right? So those are the things where we do have this sort of like small menu of additional fees that we would charge. But again, we're pretty upfront with them. They're not, it's not, the only one that's volume-based with the dump, if there's a dump fee surcharge, that's volume-based, right? And we can keep track of that, because ServiceCore, thank you. And basically be like, hey, we pulled this much, you know, over this billing period, it's, you know, this much over for fees, like blah, 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 per our agreement. But we just try to represent, like, very black and white, very simply, so that when you receive an invoice, it's not a surprise. That's ultimately what we're trying to avoid.
Thank you. Great discussion. Okay, let's move on to operations. Something that we've seen that kind of shocked us, and when we looked at the data, was that luxury restroom rental trailer rental lengths went way higher than we thought. We were just like, we actually checked the data like 6 times just to make sure it was correct, because it was like, hold on a second. So we dug a little deeper, and this is showing you by region, but what we started to learn was that there's this trend of construction companies are competing for skilled workers, and it's a tight labor market, and so they're actually like, hey, you want to come work on our bougie construction site? One. And then, you know, think about all the data centers and whatnot. It's something that they can use to appeal to win more business, also to win more labor. So I'm just really curious. I know, Chris, I asked you before I pass the mic to you. What's been your experience?
So we've definitely seen an upswing in it. And I think there's a few reasons, like you had, mentioned. The other part of, I think a lot of these job supers have enough on their plate. So if they can actually get the site to go with it, it really helps with OSHA regulations for a lot of those guys. It does pull the talent in. But in our area, yes, we have definitely seen an upswing in the trailers, as well as the waste and water systems for job trailers.
And we've also seen a lot of our venues, like the barns, that don't have a restroom. I've had a lot more requests for long-term rentals of our trailers there, which is great for us, great for them, and then they just include it in their pricing. So we've seen a lot more of those.
Sorry, I thought there was one more in there. I'm just wondering, like, who has seen this in their market? Steve? Others? Okay. One thing that we heard when by the way, we do like smaller roundtables around the country. Be on the lookout via email if you ever want to come to those. It's smaller, intimate discussions. But basically, one of the things we heard from our one that we held last week was that if they don't dedicate a team once their luxury restroom trailers get larger, then it's really hard to get people, switching on and off. Has anyone had that experience? Do you dedicate a team to your restroom trailers, or do you have it mixed? You guys do dedicated? So it sounds like dedicated, moving that direction. Cool. If you need to order a new luxury restroom trailer, then you can see Satellite after the shameless plug. Okay, hiring and retaining. This was an interesting one, and something that wasn't so surprising is like 70% of operators cite drivers as the hardest position to fill. Who agrees? Well, so there's like a ton of the audience that thinks it's easy to fill? You're liars. No, okay. Yeah, you must live in where the job market's hot. But, you're competing with some of the, like an Amazon delivery, FedEx, municipal jobs, and others. But here's something interesting. So 82% of hires come from just 2 sources. The number 1 is referrals, and I don't think that's a surprise. Nearly half of all hires. But job boards, Indeed and ZipRecruiter are the where people are recruiting drivers. And something interesting, we did one of these roundtables, and Steve down here was part of that, where we talked about, where do you guys hire? They said Indeed. So we built these Indeed templates that are, when you think about Google, that you do SEO for Google, we did SEO for Indeed, and we created these templates to be for each of the positions that were most popular. So like the driver, your office manager, a salesperson. I think there's 7 of them in there. Free download. So I'll leave that up on the screen for a second if you just want to take a screenshot of that QR code and download it later. But so referrals, if we're thinking about that, referral bonus is something that we've heard, and there's different ways to do a referral bonus. But Will, do you have a referral program, and can you speak to it?
Yeah, we have a referral program. We started doing it probably like 3 years ago, and we sort of edged into it, not knowing like how well it would go over or whatever. But at the end of the day, we found that is easily the most rapid way to get new people in the door, and it's something that it also goes with if you're trying to sort of put forward your company culture and make sure that you're hiring the right people without wasting a lot of time. Our folks know that if they bring somebody in the door, it has to be the right type of person to make it at the company. And so I think by having this incentivized program, and we're a little north of those numbers actually, because we want them to bring in talent. We want them to bring in people that want to work here, and we try to create sort of a very rewarding benefit structure. And so that we find that through the referral program, generally speaking, I mean, I don't have a number like that we've actually calculated, but if we did look at the numbers of like turnover with regards to, people that came in through referral versus people that we hired through, an Indeed job posting, I would venture that it's significantly lower in terms of the turnover. And also the people that have come in and been successful and sort of moved up the ranks have also come through that referral program. One other source that I would highlight here that we have started using is we've also started to use temp agencies more and more. Because they can provide, like a general laborer can, under that sort of heading can come in and work for your company. And if, obviously now certain insurances you can't cover as drivers and things like that, but depending on how you're organized and what you do, like if you have maintenance teams, if you have yard teams, if you have assistant drivers, those types of things, that program, going through a temp agency, it's a great tryout period. Right? It is a great tryout period because you get to, run these people through their paces, and at the end of the day, there's no agreement, right? You haven't gone through the process of onboarding them, getting them involved in benefits and things like that. So it's a really good trial period, and it's bilateral. Like we have hired some really good people that way as well, and they really appreciate it because I think that if you just sort of think of the experience of a temp, somebody who's like a temp laborer that goes through and like, Monday I was over here, I was, sorting trash. And then on Tuesday I was over here, I was ironing shirts. Wednesday I come over here and I work for this company. I like the people, I like the culture. I talk to some folks and I understand what their benefits package looks like. And it's like, man, like this would be a great place to work, right? I'm going to earn it. And if they, they go through and they earn it after the ones we work with, typically it's like a 90-day hands off. And that's been really good for us, especially recently. And we've started to leverage it more for a little bit more of skilled labor. We're hiring more people like in our maintenance department and things like that that are, like have like carpentry skills and things like that. So it's another great resource for that where we don't have to go out and try and post for a job that we don't necessarily, I don't know how to write like a job description for, you know, a finished carpenter. That's not my jam. So it's helpful. Let them do the work.
Just curious, do you pay out the referral bonus at hire or after a time period?
90 days. 90 days. Do you guys have one?
We have never done a bonus for referrals, but we have had a lot of like siblings come and work for us, and I gotta say, a lot of times it hasn't worked out. And that's always bad, because if you're like, sorry, the sibling's gotta go, then you're like, is the good guy gonna go too? So, and temp agency by us, I don't know that we would get anybody that we'd ever wanna hire, unfortunately, so we've not been able to use that venue.
One other thing I was going to say is our referral bonus goes to both people. So it goes both to the person who brings in the talent, and then the person who was actually brought on after their 90 days gets something too.
That's really neat because there's a lot of incentive not to mess up. You've got your friend that you don't want to. Who has a unique program for a referral bonus that you could share? You guys don't have unique programs, or you're tired? We've got monsters in the back if you guys want to drink something. Okay.
It's really expensive to find good people, right? It's really, and train them and then they leave. Yep. And that, like you said, when you're incentivizing both the person who works for you and the person that they bring on, this person is generally a friend or acquaintance. They don't want to let this person down, right? So now they both sort of have some skin in the game. So it's worked for us.
In your bylaws, like in your temp agency bylaws, there's a thing on
I'm not gonna lie, they just get absolutely beat and run through the ringer, and which is why at the end of the day, not because like we're mean to them and haze them, but just because generally speaking, insurance doesn't allow them to drive trucks and things like that, so they're very limited. So inevitably, they sort of fall into the roles that our other full-time employees, like, hey, we need drivers, like, okay, boom, push the full-time employees there because we can handle it with insurance. So they kind of backfill into the less glamorous jobs where it's just like we just need bodies moving things or scrubbing things or whatever it is. So if they make it through that, like they want it, they want to be there, which is, so we end up getting like really like the best of the best. If they kind of hang on for that 90-day period, like they want to be there.
Great insight. So temp agencies, that might be something you want to try in your market. Driver pay. So this was one of those things that's like people, you know, you'll see it on PTN and what do you pay your drivers? Well, here it is broken down by region. And you can, you know, everyone in this room can look at it and say, are we competitive in our market or are we not based on the average hourly pay? Where Gracie, he's coming. Gracie, do you have a question? Oh, read numbers, sorry, too small there. So in the Northeast, $25.31. In the Midwest, $23.18. In the West, $22. It was just hourly driverly pay without OT, yeah, base. The West is $22.89. Southeast, $21.25. And then the Southwest was, I believe, the lowest at $20.60. I feel like someone should yell bingo after all those numbers. But how do you, does anyone, is this surprising to anyone? Nope. Anyone have a song they want to sing? No? Okay, just checking, make sure everyone's alive. Okay, so some things to take back and think about as it relates to employment. First, review your Indeed postings if you use Indeed. Download ours, you know, make it your own. Hopefully they'll help you out. You know, is your pay, like, is that a benchmark against your region where you might be too low or you might be too high? And then here's something interesting. You know, if we're talking about it's really hard to hire drivers, you want to keep them, obviously. And if you were to go to your best driver and ask them, you know, take your best three, why do you stay here? What would they say? Cynthia, can I ask you that question?
That is funny because I love our employees probably too much. And I would hope that they would say, because we have a family atmosphere and we really do care. But I think we treat our drivers fairly. We try not to overextend them if we can't. And we're very involved in the day-to-day, and we know what they do, we know where they are, we know what, is going on. I like to find out about their families and things, and be involved in that. So hopefully that's what they would say. I don't know that that's the true answer, but hopefully that's what they would say.
I think they would. Oh, okay. Tell us about your mom growing up.
Matt, we have a question in the audience.
So I'm coming from a different route-based industry looking at this one. Are production pay models used or common in this industry? Anybody using them?
I think they had their moment.
Yeah, they used to
They
be.
used to like $3 per John you touch. Like it was a moment, like a fad, and it just quickly.
Yeah, I think it went away. I knew there was a big company that they've been bought out now, but that was like their whole model in our market, that it was like on a per unit basis. But I haven't heard of anybody around us and any of the markets we're in doing it for a while.
Great question. Okie dokes. Moving on to billing practices. So what's really interesting here is when we first started the benchmark report, we were asking these things like, hey, do you bill on a 28-day cycle? Do you offer online payments? Are you billing up front? Do you invoice daily? Do you keep a credit card on file? Winterization fees is new this year. And do you charge for fuel surcharges? What's really interesting is that when we first started this, like the 28-day billing cycle, it was nowhere near 89%. Online payments, nowhere near that. What's interesting is the industry has definitely evolved. I do think that software has made this much easier. But the one thing that stood out was when we talked about adding, some fees. Obviously, if you're in you live in Florida, you're not going to be charging a winterization fee. You might if you put it in like really small print. But 24% of the people that said they charge a winterization fee. So that might be something that you add on if you are in a colder climate, and that you could pass along to your customers if they would be willing to stomach that.
We were talking about winterization fees in the car on the way here. I struggle with that. Yes, our brine costs more, but we can't clean the unit like we do when we have fresh water. And I don't think it's fair as far as I'm concerned. If I was a customer, if you're not going to charge me for the expensive water, then I don't mind as much that my unit's not really clean. So that's how we kind of justify not charging it. I know, of course, my husband, the money man, is always like, oh yeah, charge it whatever you can. But that's why we don't charge a winterization fee. He says we should, and I say, no. I'm a little more loving to my people.
Let's survey Cynthia's children again. Okay, this is something that was very positive that we saw. Basically, again, if we look at the 4-year span of doing this report, when we asked people, how many days outstanding is your accounts receivable? This was spread across the board when we first started doing this. And this year, for the first time, it moved where people in the 0 to 60 days, if we call it those buckets, way more people in there. And so I just wanted to dig in a little bit here. What have you implemented that's made this easier for you to keep your AR lower? Who wants it more? Is it Cynthia or Will?
This is a plug for ServiceCore because I think that's going to be skewed because a lot of that information is coming from your clients, and your system makes it easier to do these things and do them more standardized, repeated, bulk download, analyze, reach out strategically. So I know from our billing perspective, that just streamlines the process, and you can have an outsized impact with fewer people, right? So it's much easier to process the information. That's one thing that we've seen, and that's probably the biggest one. I think we've also wised up to. Over time, we've wised up a little bit to the cycle of operations within, the industries that we're in, and understand that, like, hey, it's great that our invoices say net 15, but like our, certain people to work with certain contractors or GCs, like their MSA is 45 days. That's just the way it is, right? So you just kind of have to accept it. And I think there'll always be some of those tail ones where you're out like 90 days or whatever, because some of those are 45 days, but they only process at the end of the month. So you're effectively at 75 days if you build on the first, right? And I think we all
have the same 5.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yep, exactly. And yeah, it'll never change, right? Like, and we just sort of absorb it. You understand it, but as long as they pay, right, and it's kind of like understood, I think that's okay. But I think that the shift here is primarily because they're using your system the right way.
Yeah, and I would agree, you know, we had one billing gal, it would take her all month to run the monthly credit cards because she'd have to do it in between everything else she was doing, and it was very manual processed. And with ServiceCore, with the auto pay, first of all, a lot of our customers really love that option, especially with the ACH. We used to get that question all the time, well, can I pay with a check, you know, online? And now we can, so the auto pay has made a huge difference for us, especially for the little customers.
Great. Okay, so let's look towards the future. And now when we did the survey, we were in 2025. Now we are in the future, but let's look towards the rest of 2026. So what was interesting is that 46% of those surveyed thought the economy was going to be better and their economic outlook would be better. 34% the same, and very little people said that it would be worse. So that is good to see. And where is the growth going to come from? So most were stating that they were going to grow existing customers, expand service area, or taking market share from their competitors. And the service lines expected to grow the most, the standard restroom, and then event rentals, and there it is, the luxury restroom trailer jumping up on this list. For our panel up here, you guys are always growing, so if you would be able to share where some of those areas coming from, who wants to start?
Well, we accidentally increase our service area by being approached by the little guy who wants to retire, so that's definitely been a plus for us. Definitely the trailers have increased exponentially, almost to the point where you almost don't want to do it anymore because it's just its own department and it's kind of a pain in the neck. But yeah, the stealing from a competitor kind of idea, we'd love to do it if we can and still provide great service, but we're finding in our market that the little guy is always cheaper, and providing just as good a service. So that's been a difficulty for us, for sure.
Anyone in the audience want to share? Like, what have you seen so far, and are you trying to grow in the areas that other people said as well? No one wants cookies. Okay. Next year, what should we give out instead? Alcohol? Scratch offs? Yeah. You win a ServiceCore subscription for 3 days. Yeah.
Question over here.
Speaking and asking the little guys, and maybe this goes to Will or Cynthia there in the middle, being a little bit bigger, but what kind of sales department specifically are you running? Are you running boots on the ground sales, inside sales? How many sales reps for your 165? What does that look like?
Yeah, so I think we're a little bit of a weird case on this. We don't have any salespeople. It's all very relationship driven and sort of performance driven. We sort of go with and expand as clients that we've worked with kind of go other places or whatever. That's kind of been our expansion model, is we just sort of go with and follow them if they ask us to go. We've had good success with more of like an account manager type role, right? Where it becomes, they're sort of a jack of all trades, master of none kind of person, that they can go out and be in your uniform, like a service uniform, right? And they can, get into a portable toilet and recognize that the toilet seat nut needs to be tightened down because the seat's loose, right? Seat's not broken, the seat's just loose. Just reach your hand in there and tighten it down, right? They can do that. They can crawl under a restroom trailer or a job site trailer and see that, a Fernco fitting has been disconnected. Or, after doing both of those things, they could also walk into a job site trailer, introduce themselves with a smile on their face, and carry on a conversation with somebody and just be like, hey, I'm here, from Ameri-cans, my name's so-and-so. What are we doing right and what could we do better, right? And that's been a successful strategy for us outside of, besides just having sales. We don't, like I said, we don't really have a sales team. We don't spend a lot in that area. Even on social media, our presence on social media is kind of non-existent. Occasionally we do posts on LinkedIn and whatnot, but that's really about it. So I think for us, it has just been, it's relationship management driven through execution. And that's been the most successful strategy for us. We've dabbled in it over time, but it's just one of those things. It's just we could never get it dialed in the right way.
Yeah, we're very much the same. I am the wearer of all hats, but I'm also the master of all hats. So, yes, relationships. We did hire a salesperson for, 3 or 4 years in our tenure. And for some reason, when people talk to me as an owner, it's bigger to them than just a salesperson. I don't know if they know I have more power and I can make more adjustments or what, but yes, relationships. And each one of our managers at the different branches, they know their customers, they make those visits, there's a face there, they know they can call 24/7. So yes, it's also very relationship based. We just haven't found that a salesperson is worth the cost.
It's a double-edged sword, though, too, right? Because if you have a sales team and somebody wants to call you at 9 o'clock on a Friday or a Saturday because a trailer's down at a wedding, or just to see if you'll pick up the phone, right? Because sometimes those conversations are like that, you know, that's the same cell phone my mom calls, my partner Patrick loves to say. Like, if they're going to take you up on that, and then how you respond when they actually do it, right? That's what makes it that you can probably get by without a sales team, in my opinion, right? It's how you actually do respond when those opportunities present themselves.
Nice, great question. Gracie, behind you.
Can I just kind of piggyback off of the sales thing? Kind of an outlier here just because we are a lumber yard that happens to have porta potties. But I think it's important to remember that no matter you're selling lumber, porta potties, whatever, your drivers or your service techs are salespeople, and they're the face of your company that's always out there, and they're selling your product. They know your product better than anybody else, and if you show up to a job site and something's not right, they can make it right then and there, and they can sell that product, and they can make things right, and they can do the right things, and if you're trying to grow and expand, they can drive up to a job site and talk to the foreman on the job site, say, hey, this is our product, and push the sales that way versus having a sales team, somebody show up with a suit, have the guy show up with the neon vest on and sell the product that way. I think that's something that's really important to push your company forward. Those guys your service techs, your drivers, they know it better than anyone else, in my opinion. So,
What's your name?
Rocky.
You get 2 boxes of cookies, Rocky.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you for sharing. All right, we have a lot more to get through, so I'm gonna keep it moving here. This one was really interesting. So AI, obviously everywhere you go these days, AI. We use it a lot in our business, but when we surveyed and we said, do you use AI or have you started using it in your portable sanitation business? Only 37% said yes. And when we asked about planned uses for it, or if you are using it, to write emails, some marketing, training materials, sales, creating blog posts, very small, and competitor research was small as well. This is an interesting opportunity. We've been doing in our roundtables a session about ChatGPT, and most recently we did one on how to look for RFPs, and soon to be how to look for permits, and then who's the right person to contact, how do you jump on top of that, how do you write the email, how do you have the call script and get ahead of these things. We're gonna be putting this out via video here to get it out to the masses, 'cause every time I do this presentation and we do it live, people come up and they go, can you do this to my sales team? I'm like, way above your pay grade, but no, but seriously, this is an area where I think that the industry, if you guys lean into it, you could just dominate competition, and just because AI makes things much easier. So keep an eye out for that content coming out here shortly in the spring. I'm going to move on from this just because we have, this is the general contractor survey was something brand new, but what we did was we wanted to say, like, okay, what would be something really interesting that we can share in this year's benchmark report? And the feedback we got was like, could you survey our customers? And when we look at where does the most amount of revenue come from, it's from the commercial sector. And so we went after general contractors, mostly like in the home building and construction space, and we surveyed hundreds of them. And here's what they said. I'm just going to run through this, and then at the end we'll have a bit of a discussion. So what matters most when choosing a portable sanitation provider? So quick response and delivery, price, the lowest quote, well, duh, right? Then that's what a lot of them look at. Reliable communication, the payment options. So this is one that I think Cynthia mentioned earlier too. My customers love that I can pay, that I can use the online portal. Good online reviews and referrals. So if you don't have online reviews, good area of opportunity. That you're local and family owned. That would be thinking about, like, if there is one of the big players in your area that's doing lots of PPC bidding, and getting business in your area, well, this person wants to know that you're on the ground and that you know the area, so pretty cool. That you have an established reputation, flexibility for last minute changes, one-stop shop for restrooms and dumpsters. That was an interesting piece too. So how do they find you? So referrals and word of mouth was the number one thing in past experience. Number two, Google search. Number three, and then it drops off. But something you said, Will, was the relationships, right? You said, I don't have a sales team. We build these relationships. That was, he said everything right there. But what I want you to start thinking about is like, how do you build those relationships? Because there's something that's interesting that's coming up here. Some more information like communication preferences. Email was the highest, phone second, and text messaging was in there too. And an online portal. And what's interesting is like, I think that will grow over time with the online portal. I just don't think enough portable sanitation operators are providing an online portal. As software adoption increases, we'll start to see more of that. And ours will keep getting better and better. Thank you, Cynthia. Payment preferences, credit cards, number one by far, and then the rest is kind of in line there. But so if you're not set up to do these things easily, this is where your competition can come in and potentially win that business if they're creating the relationships. But here's where I wanted to touch on something that was really interesting was that when we asked these people, what do you really care about? They said proof of service. Timestamp photos or digital logs is important, 92%. And here's where it gets really interesting. When we asked, do you require your drivers to take photos before and after? People said after service, 42% yes, 58 no. At delivery, which is kind of interesting, I don't really know what that part means, but before service, only 24% have people take a picture before. So you don't get it before and after. And if 92% of those general contractors want that, that's a really quick fix that you can make to your business. Yeah, absolutely.
We have some repeat offenders, graffiti and all that kind of stuff. So if we have already contacted a site about there being an issue, we do ask the driver to take that before picture so that we can have that as leverage to say, dude, you have to get more units or we're going to, change what you got going, increase your billing, whatever, because you're overusing these units. So yeah, we don't do very often the before unless it's a necessity. And I think the at delivery is for us, that way we can see the placement really well because, you get on site and the customer goes, oh no, I want it, blah, 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 and okay. And then the guy to pick it up isn't the same guy that delivered it. And it's easy then in the office, we go, oh yeah, I can see it. It's right next to this. And then the driver can find it easy.
Thank you. Here, why do customers switch providers? Lower prices, that's always going to be in there, but better customer service. The thing is, thank you. The thing is, if you are, if you think about like when are they looking? They're looking based on relationships, but if someone else has a relationship with them, it doesn't mean that you can't. That was something that really hit home for us where, if you're starting to develop relationships, just stop by, bring some donuts in the morning, just have like, our friend that has 2 boxes of cookies back there was saying like, hey, those people driving around, that's your brand. Have them start talking to them. Start to build that relationship because one of the number one things they said was why do they look for service or when do they look for service? It's when they have a problem. You don't know when they're going to have a problem, but if you're keeping on to that relationship, you might be the one that they give their business to next. Okay. I was just told that I'm going to get the cane if I don't get off stage. So does anyone have anything to share that? How do you develop relationships with those bigger brands in your bigger construction and general contractors in your area that, has worked for you? Chloe or Gracie, come all the way down the front. Here comes Gracie, Steve. Wait. That way everyone can hear.
So one thing that I tell our salespeople is you can't just stop by once and hope that it's like you got to stop by multiple times. And just to piggyback on what you said before, I said you're probably not going to be their first call, and that's fine, but always be their second call because they will have a problem at some point. So make sure you're the second call. And that's just built on going to see them regularly, even if they're not your customers. So we have it as a rotation in the two sales guys, like every fourth week, like once a month, they go to competitor sites and just try and build relationships. And some people will just tell you to F off and get off the site, and that's fine. Like, you're not going to win everything, but the ones that will talk to you and you build a relationship, we've had quite a few where they say, well, next job, we'll give you a try. Like, that's all.
Are you guys bringing like coffee or treats? Or?
Yeah, sometimes, not always. Sometimes it's just a conversation, like just talking about. And if the salesperson take good notes, so they'll know, like, oh, this guy likes hockey or this guy likes ice fishing, whatever, right? Like whatever is the common bond, and you just have that conversation with them.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing.